My new book, Becoming, is coming out this fall. I can't wait to share it with you. I am so excited because I have been working on a book that's really the culmination of my career as a model. So there's iconic photographs from throughout my career. The second part of the book is really about the journey and the lessons that I've learned. I called the book Becoming because the book is about my journey into becoming Cindy Crawford. The pictures are fun and exciting, and that's why everyone knows me. But the lessons I learned along the way are universal, and that's what I want to pass down to my children. There are things like learning to say no, or setting your boundaries, or taking chances. And when I page through the book, each picture for me is a story. It's a day. It's the relationship that I have with the photographer, the hairdresser, the makeup artist. I've worked with so many incredible photographers, and each one taught me something. Some of it's how to hold a pose or how to have fun. So I was trained by like the Penn and the Avedon and the Scribneskis, but Richard Avedon, I always say, he taught me how to do a cover. He would say to me, have a thought, even if it's just by me. And no one else has to know, I don't have to share it with anybody, but it's that thought behind your eyes, and that is that little spark that brings it alive. I never saw myself as a muse necessarily of any photographers. I mean, I certainly had people that I worked with a lot, but I never had like that total like muse-like relationship. But after doing the book, I was like, you know what? I think I had that with Herb, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I am surprised when I look back at my career to see, like, you know what, I didn't always follow the rules. I did Playboy at a time in my career where everyone was telling me not to. I did this little show that they were starting out on, this little network called MTV. I straddled Katie Lang for the cover of Vanity Fair, and it really made me realize the power of an image. Beauty, to me, is really about two things: confidence and passion. You carry yourself a certain way. You trust that what you have to say is interesting. You offer, you're engaged. That is beautiful. The other part is passion. And that kind of spark glows, and everyone sees it. The process of doing this book really helped me look back and see, wow, where I started and where I am today, and to be excited about the future. My new book, Becoming, will be available from your favorite bookseller on September 29th.
Cindy, I have to say, confidence, I'm trying to like really boost it up here being on stage with you.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it. Oh, I'm faking it. How am I doing?
You're doing great.
What was your process like for choosing what to include in the book versus what not?
Well,
I guess editing yourself.
Right. In the beginning, when we started working on the book, there were a few stories that I knew I had to get in there. A lot of it was this first mentor, Victor Scribneski, I had, and leaving Chicago and kind of making that big leap to New York. I knew I wanted to do one, for instance, on my thoughts about body image. So there was, like, the first 5 or 6 were just super easy, and those are what we used to sell the book. Mm-hmm. And then there were certain images that I knew I wanted to include and that were kind of iconic. And so those were some of the other essays. And then just through the process of writing, and we spent a year and a half working on the book, they just came into focus. And some that I thought were going to be important ended up not making the cut.
That you just didn't feel resonated for whatever reason.
Yeah, once we kind of figured out what the book was and what it was looking like, it was easier to know what belonged and what didn't.
And I know that you have a reputation among models as being incredibly professional, on time, just a total pro. Were you always like that, or was there an aha moment in your career where you were like, whoa, this is not a path I want to go down, this is a job and I'm going to do my job well?
I think I came that way. Part of growing up in the Midwest, I think, is that Midwestern work ethic. Mm-hmm. And modeling was not my first job. I mean, I had babysat, I cleaned houses, I worked in the cornfields, I worked in a clothing store.
You were going to be an engineer.
I went to, a chemical engineer, no less. But I think by the time I started modeling, I just saw modeling, it was my job. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a definition of who I was. And I treated it like a job. And I showed up on time, and I showed up prepared, and I hadn't been partying all night. And I think that professionalism is one of the things that helped my career go as long as it has.
What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about being a quote-unquote supermodel that you get asked repeatedly when you meet people?
I don't know what I get asked, but I definitely think that, and I write in the book, like, that even I don't wake up looking like Cindy Crawford. You know, the pictures, the images that we see, it's hair, it's makeup, it's great lighting, it's, you know, styling. It's that one moment. You might take 100 pictures, and 99 of them aren't great, but then you hope for that one that tells a story and is dynamic in some way. You know, I think that it's work. I mean, it's a great job. I've loved it. But there's still some days where, as my father said, they don't call it work for nothing. I mean, there's still some days where you're like, oh, going to work. I mean, normally I'm excited once I get there. But, you know, like yesterday I had to set my alarm for 4:45 a.m., which was not that exciting for me. You know, I don't love getting up. I'm an early bird, but that's kind of beyond early. That's still late.
That's kind of like you should still, you know, probably in your past life you were going to bed at that time.
Yeah,
as opposed
exactly.
To...
Well, I was never that girl, but that's one of the misconceptions,
well, you know, yeah.
I think.
What's another one? Probably that you get like racks and racks and racks and racks and racks
free
of clothes.
Like,
yes.
right, that everything's free. And there were certain designers, like an Azzedine Alaya, who used to, instead of paying us to do the fashion shows, he would pay you in clothes. And those were actually clothes that you wanted. Some of the jobs that you would get paid for, they would say, oh, you can keep this. And you're like, okay,
thanks.
Well, no, thank you. Yeah, and or that you're dressed in designer clothes all the time. That I think a lot of people, you know, like, I'm not a makeup artist. I can do my own makeup fairly, you know, like for public, but, you know, certainly the people that do that professionally, they take it to a whole nother level.
And I know you write in the book about learning to say no. What was the moment for you when you realized that you had the power to say no?
I don't know if it was one moment. It's just that, I guess, little steps of learning. One of the stories that I tell in the book is about how, yeah, I guess because I did grow up in the Midwest in a small town and fairly sheltered environment, I kind of just thought people would do the right thing and look out for me. And I was doing a job. I was 18 years old, just graduated from high school, and we were shooting a spa story for British Vogue, and we were in the Barbados and in a spa, in a steam. And the photographer had me in the steam was on, and the camera was outside the door, blocking the door. And at a certain point, I was like, oh, I'm getting a little lightheaded. And I went to like knock to say, can you let me out? And the guy shook his head, no, the photographer. And I was like, that's crazy. Like,
I'm going to pass out.
And I did.
Yeah.
I passed out. And I learned from that and other little things like that, that I would have to stand up to, like, authority figures. And I think that's kind of a hard thing to, I mean, I was raised to, like, respect people older than you and try to please them. And at a certain point, yes, that's true, and I try to instill that same thing in my own kids, but not if they're asking you to do something that is stupid or not safe. And you find that inner voice, your inner adult, who says that's not a good idea, and you don't have to do that. But it, you know, I definitely was a process.
Well, it's interesting because one of the most iconic images, for example, of Kate Moss is the topless shot. And then I just recently read an interview with her where she said she was basically forced to do it. She was crying, she was uncomfortable, but she was, I think, 15 or 16 at the time. There was no parent on set for whatever reason, and so she was like, I had no idea that I could say no. I thought, no matter how I felt, this is what I was paid to do, and I had to do it.
Yeah. I think that we've all probably had experiences like that. For whatever reason, I never had a problem taking my clothes off. That's not true. There were certain photographers that I felt comfortable with and I felt protected. And actually there was one time that I was talked into doing a topless shot, kind of, not so much that I didn't know I couldn't say no, but it just was hard. It was hard to say no. And that's the only nude that I've done that I regret, because I didn't sign up for it. I didn't vote myself in. And especially depending on the kind of rapport that you have with the photographer, they can either make it so not feel smarmy, or it can feel creepy. And in this one instance, and we were shooting in my apartment, I did feel a little bit like, why did I do that? Why didn't I stand up for myself?
And now that your daughter is doing a little bit of modeling here or there, I remember when we spoke at your skincare launch, you said it was kind of like dipping a toe in and out, and she's in school. What's the biggest piece of advice that you give her?
Well, two things. One, be professional. Show up on time, show up ready to work. Know a little bit about do your research. I mean, I think even before, when I didn't have the advantage of Google or the internet, where you could look up everything, right? And you need to know who you're working with. Like, look up the photographers, understand what kind of pictures they like, what language they're talking, because some or their lighting. So you've done your homework, you've been prepared, and you're ready to work, professional. And then also just in terms of being in front of the camera, and I talked about it a little bit on the video, that Richard Avedon really taught me that modeling, it's not just being a pretty girl. I mean,
and just sitting there like,
right. You have to look at the clothes, understand what kind of pictures the team is trying to do that way, and be a team player and bring something to the table. Like, what are you contributing? You're not just a clothes hanger that's just going to put the clothes on. And I always, now, with the advantage of digital photography, they have the monitor there, so you see instant playback. And I look at that. How am I going to make this better? What can I do to make the picture better?
You live in California. Are you able to, I mean, you're so recognizable, oh my God. Are you able to just go out for dinner or go to the beach without people coming up to you?
I think, yes, I am. I mean, but then sometimes you see pictures of yourself and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even see that one. Because the lenses now are so big. You could think you're out riding a bike with your family, and all of a sudden there's pictures. So I do keep that in mind, that I could be photographed. So maybe not, don't go out in the holy sweatpants or whatever. But I think at the point where I am in my life now, I'm not harassed constantly. There's not people camping outside my house. There's been different times in my life where there's more focus on me for whatever reason. But where I am now, it's definitely manageable. And I can still get pretty good dinner reservations, so last minute. That's a big perk.
Isn't that the biggest perk? That's what everyone always says.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, yeah. And what would be, if you were starting out today, what's the lesson that you would tell yourself?
I have a chapter at the end of the book about what I would tell my younger self, but it's even evolved a little bit from when I wrote that. And I think it has to do with insecurity and how recognizing that we all have that little insecure kid inside of us. And I know, when I moved to New York and I felt like, wow, I'm everyone's so sophisticated and they're so smart, and how did I end up at this dinner table, and am I going to say the right thing? And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves instead of recognizing that everyone at that table does either feel like that or has felt like that we all have insecurity at some time. And instead of trying to, posture, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be insecure. I mean, I think that's just part of being human.
And do you think modeling has changed at all? And I say specifically because I know Gigi Hadid has gotten some backlash for being, I guess, allegedly.
Gorgeous.
I mean, yeah, hello, I've seen her in person.
Exactly.
She's blinding. But apparently online, according to the experts on social media, she is far too curvy to be a model. And she responded recently saying that, to each his own, there's room for every body type. I mean, do you think that modeling has become more accepting, or has it changed at all that you've seen?
Just the whole, I do think that the models of today have social media is a great tool for them. They can kind of write their own PR, because my generation, we didn't have a way to directly reach our fans. So I think it's been amazing for all these different individual women to kind of create their own personality, let that show. But it's also a big responsibility, and it's also can be a place where, I'm from the Midwest, and we were raised, if you don't have something nice to say,
don't say
it. Somehow that has not translated yet to people's comments. And you know, as a mother, and just even seeing some of the comments grown women will make on my 14-year-old daughter's Instagram, I'm like, if you want to bully someone, bully me, because I can take it, and I can probably give it back. But I, you know, in my head anyway, I probably wouldn't do it.
You will track them down.
I'm gonna. But I just feel like, I mean, that goes, and I do try to teach my daughter that usually when people try to bring you down, it's because of their insecurity. And Gigi Hadid is a beautiful woman any way you slice it. And the fact that someone could make her feel less than that, I don't get it.
No, it was kind of amazing.
It's just not nice. I mean, that sounds old-fashioned maybe, but it's not nice.
No, it's not nice, and I want to see some of these people who hate on her try to, you know,
and even,
show up at some of these shoots and get a Maybelline contract,
and you
for
know
example.
what, they might be beautiful too. I mean, why do we have to, because, like, why can't Gigi be beautiful and someone who's more angular be beautiful? It's all, you know, instead of looking at the negative, I think that we could, you know, try to shift our perception a little bit and see the beauty. You know, she's a gorgeous woman.
And we had Rob Lowe in here earlier this week, and I had to ask him, so I'm going to ask you, do you drink unicorn tears? Like, do you bathe in, like, gypsy sweat? I have
one of the hyperbaric chambers. Rob, actually, I know him a little bit, and he does. He has, like, that boyish quality.
Oh, my God. I was like, really? Like, do you live in a cryogenic chamber? Like, what is the... like, it's amazing to me. And yet he still looks his age, but just looks incredible.
He looks great. I definitely think, you know, I've taken care of myself for such a long time, and modeling, in a way, was a great influence on me that way, because I started exercising and eating right and taking care of my skin at a young age. Genetics is huge. I mean, well, first of all, both of my grandmothers are still alive, and my mother and father both are with us, but look great and are young and healthy. That's a big part of it. And then I also think, I mean, look, I'm aging, we're all aging, but instead of trying to live in the past, just embracing where you are in the moment, and hopefully you have satisfying relationships, you're doing work that you love, you are being kind to yourself, and, you know, taking time to have friends and exercise and read or whatever your passion is. I think those things show on your face. Hit your leg there, that makes you not sneeze. Did you know
Seriously?
that? Yeah.
It worked.
I know.
That's amazing.
It's like an acupressure point. I don't know why. So on like, if I'm doing it, sometimes during an interview, you will see, like, you're like...
Like if you're on the Today Show
Yeah,
or something,
exactly.
and you're like, dear God, I can't sneeze.
Yeah.
That totally... How did you learn that?
Someone told it to me, so I'm passing it on.
Oh! Life lessons from... #Life lessons from Cindy Crawford. And do you... so much has been written about when people asked you to remove your mole and you stood firm. Do you...
Well, I wasn't so firm. I definitely, when I was a kid, I hated having a mole because it just made me different, and my sisters teased me, and kids at school teased me, the whole football team teased me. At a modeling agency, the very first one I went to told me that they thought I should remove it. But my mother was wise enough to say, okay, you can do that, but you don't know what a scar will look like, and you know what your mole looks like. And I kind of tossed that around for a while, and in the meantime, I did my first photo shoot, which was completely cheesy, and it's in the book. It's like side ponytail, like kimono, a parasol, cat. I mean, there's like every prop known to man in the picture. But I got, then from that picture, Elite Chicago was interested in me. And then I started working, and I didn't really think about it again, although sometimes they would retouch it off. And then on my first Vogue cover, you know, Vogue left the mole. It was, I'm sure they had a lot of discussion about it too. But then the perception was, well, if it's good enough for Vogue, and then no one really, it was a non-issue after that.
Can you imagine? But seriously though, your mom is so right, because back then plastic surgery, I mean, they didn't have laser surgery.
Yeah.
So can you imagine what you could have ended up with?
Yeah, you just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been fine too, but the lesson in it is that sometimes the thing that you think is maybe a flaw
or weird
can become your trademark, because I think people, even before they knew my name, they knew the model, you know, with the brown hairs, the brown eyes, and the beauty mark. And so many women and men, but, you know, will come up to me and said, you made me feel okay about my beauty mark, or as my sisters said, It's only a beauty mark on the right side. On the left side, it's an ugly mark. So I know.
Your sister.
Sisters. I do still like them, but so, and who would have known that kind of became, like
your
my
thing.
like now when I do like my little emojis, I do the lips, and then I do an apostrophe, and I have like my own little Cindy Crawford emoji.
I love it. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Wow. Well, my kids, in 5 years will be another big hurdle or not hurdle. I don't know if turning 50 was a hurdle, but it's certainly like a benchmark.
Yeah.
In 5 years, both my kids will be out of the home, theoretically, unless they, failure to launch kind of situation.
You're going to have the Italian family where they never, the ones that you read about where there's like 5 generations of kids still living there.
I mean, you kind of, in a way, you kind of want that, but you don't want that for your kids because you want them to blossom and do their own becoming. But it'll be interesting for me and my husband because even though I've had a career, you're my number one priority, and I think every parent would say this, is their family life. I mean, after you have kids, you're like, what did I do with all my...
I know.
You're like, what did I do with my time before? How did I, because now I add all that in and I still have my job. So it'll be an interesting time kind of reacclimating to what that looks like. I don't think I'm the type that just wants to do nothing. I've worked since I was 16 years old, so I don't know. I will have to see what kind of... So far, I've just let where I am in my life kind of lead me to opportunities, and we'll see.
Isn't it funny, though, like, before we turn this over to the audience, I have one girlfriend who doesn't have kids, and I still get texts from her on Saturdays being like, so it's 11, think I'm going to get a blowout, then I'm going to go to the gym, then do you want to meet for dinner at like 9? And I'm like, what?
Or like, hey, last minute brunch, you're like, we've already had breakfast, and I'm like actually making lunch right now. But then, how old is yours? You said, 4. So there's totally, like when they're little, it's just that full-on thing. And then, now mine are teenagers. My son drives, they do their own stuff, but you still want to be there, because sometimes they still need you, or you want to be there because you don't want to turn your house over to teenagers. So you're still there, but it's like engaged in a different way. But yeah, my spontaneity hasn't been around for a while, just because I want to be there, because I know how fast it's going.
And I also thought, apparently, like, this age is when they need you the most, even though they say it the least, I guess.
Yeah, yes.
I'm told.
It's very different, but yes. And you kind of realize there's the windows closing for when you can really have a big influence. And if they do have a moment of weakness where they'll actually ask you a question, that you want to be there to give them an answer.
And how do you manage, we talked about this a little bit backstage, but how do you manage they both have famous parents, so how do they manage their social media presence and kind of their private versus public life?
Well, they're both very active on social media. They actually are teaching me, I would say, as much as I'm shepherding them. They're like, they don't like when I use too many hashtags. And they're like they're like, Mom, that's so embarrassing, you used 2 hashtags, or you posted twice too close together, or stuff like I don't know all the rules yet, and I'm still figuring out. And then Snapchat, I don't quite really understand how, I understand it, but I don't understand why I would need to use it. But my kids are, that's how they communicate. They don't even, they don't email, they don't text. Now it's like, all their communication is through Snapchat. It's just so interesting.
No, Snapchat is actually cool, especially for international travel. Then it's pretty awesome.
Okay, well, maybe I'll have to. But I think my kids would be mortified if I got on Snapchat now, because
oh my God, listening to us talk about it is like,
they feel like it's like one place where I'm not. But they understand also that it isn't. Social media. It's not a private thing. Like you have to. And I wrote about it in the book in terms of the Katie Lang image. That was a big aha moment for me in my career, because it was a Katie Lang cover. Herbert's shot it. It was about Katie, but they said, Herbert's called me the night before and was like, hey, will you come by and just be an accessory? We just want you to put a swimsuit on and straddle Katie Lang and shave her. And I'm like, okay, I'm free tomorrow. And I didn't realize that, and I would have done it 100% again, but I didn't realize that people would, sometimes that picture speaks louder than words. And in retrospect, I wish like I would have just paused 1 minute and just to understand and prepared myself, oh, people are gonna maybe think that you're trying to make a statement about yourself. So with my kids, like social media, even you think really no one's watching, but you never know. And I think they are pretty responsible about what they post. And if they have any questions, like, is this okay to post? Or they will check in with me still.
So you're still doing a good job. There you go. You still have some control.
I'm trying, yes.
All right, guys. We have time for probably 2 or 3 questions.
Hello, Cindy.
Hi.
I've been a fan since the 80s, House of Style and everything.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think about, it used to be that models and supermodels were on the cover of magazines, and now it seems it's just actresses and actors. Is that kind of like models losing jobs?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I feel really lucky that when I was, at kind of in New York and at the peak of like my modeling time, that it was really about models. But I understand because it's like that whole Omnimedia idea where, if an actress is pushing a movie, like the movie supports the magazine cover supports the movie. It's the reach is bigger. It's about commerce. Do you know? I mean, and that's why when people complain about, oh, models are too thin, and I'm like, well, did you buy the magazine? Because as long as you're buying the magazine, they're not going to change. You're giving your money. If you don't like the message, don't give the money. No, and then they will change. They'll have no choice.
Well, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same argument with celebrity kids, that as long as people are buying the pictures will be taken and sold.
Right.
So don't buy the pictures.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's next question.
Hi there. I know that you are very involved in activism, and I was wondering if you could talk about a charity or a cause or two that are important to you and why.
Well, I lost my brother when I was just shy of my 10th birthday, and he died of leukemia, childhood leukemia. And obviously that was, devastating for our whole family. But part of the way that my mom dealt with her grief was to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And we didn't have any money, we were a blue-collar family in Illinois, but she arranged a dance marathon. And it was such a great lesson for me because I saw that even if you don't have a lot of money to donate, you can still do something. You can raise awareness, you can volunteer, we raised $200, which I thought at the time, I thought that was a lot of money to donate. And that really turned that idea of activism or, philanthropy on for me. I am still involved with that hospital. And so I would say childhood cancer and then the hospital where he was treated, which is in Madison. It's the American Family Children's Hospital. Those are my passion charities. Obviously, I do a lot of stuff. I have friends that are involved in millions of, breast cancer. And
I know you do Oceana.
And St. Jude's. I mean, there's so many great causes in the world, and I try to help where I can. But when you have a personal connection, it's a lot easier to make the commitment, to show up, to take the time. And I usually find that, actually through Omega Watches, which is a company that I've worked with for a long time, my daughter and I just did a trip to Peru with Orbis, which is like a flying eye hospital, and they do eye care in emerging countries. And it was just, so all the doctors and nurses, everyone gives their time, and that was really inspiring. So I find that whenever I do make the time to not just give money, which is important, but also to give of myself, that I get more out of it. I'm sure, like these little Peruvian kids had no idea who I was, but they were happy that someone was showing that they cared.
And one last question, please.
Hi, Cindy. It's very nice meeting you today.
Thank you.
So what's next for your career, and are there any areas that you haven't tackled yet?
I don't know. I said to my husband, I was like, when this book is done, because that's really, I tend to get, very hands-on with stuff. I was like, what am I going to, it's been so time-consuming, and then it's like, okay, then it's over. Like, you have like that letdown afterwards. It's like, what am I going to do? And he's like, maybe you should just relax. And I was like, no, I'm not. I have to figure out another project. But I don't know. I really don't know. I still have my skincare line, Meaningful Beauty, which I've been doing for 15 years now. And I have a furniture line. And I've been with Omega watches for 20 years. So I have some kind of ongoing things. But I'm also always looking for like that new thing that's just it's the passion project.
Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you, Cindy.
Thank you very much.
I feel so much more confident now.
Good, thank you.